What if I told you that 7 simple words, spoken nightly, could radically transform your life's trajectory? Would you believe that a secret, hidden in plain sight for nearly a century within the teachings of one of history's greatest success philosophers, could unlock your dormant potential? The greatest minds throughout human civilization have understood a fundamental truth about our existence. The thoughts we plant in our subconscious mind during those precious moments before sleep grow into the reality we experience upon waking. This isn't mysticism or wishful thinking. It's a psychological principle documented extensively by Napoleon Hill and proven repeatedly through the transformed lives of countless individuals worldwide. The boundary between conscious and subconscious thought begins to dissolve as we drift towards sleep. Our analytical mind relaxes its guard, creating a rare window of opportunity where properly formulated suggestions can penetrate directly into our most powerful mental faculties. Napoleon Hill discovered through his 25-year study of the world's most accomplished individuals that this twilight state represents perhaps the most potent opportunity for mental reprogramming available to the human mind. What makes these 7 words so extraordinary isn't just their brevity. It's how they systematically dismantle the invisible barriers that have been holding you back, often without your awareness. Napoleon Hill and his contemporaries understood something profound that modern neuroscience has only recently begun to validate. Our minds operate through intricate patterns of electrochemical processes that create our perceptions, shape our beliefs, and ultimately determine our actions. The right words, spoken at the right time, with proper emotional intensity, can literally rewire these neural pathways. Think about that for a moment. The very structure of your brain can be transformed through the deliberate application of specific verbal patterns during periods of heightened suggestibility. This isn't speculation. It's the science of neuroplasticity applied through specific psychological techniques developed through rigorous research and refinement. You might wonder why you haven't heard about this technique before. The truth is that while Napoleon Hill's principles have influenced millions, many of his most powerful techniques remain hidden in plain sight, overlooked as readers focus on his broader philosophy rather than the specific, actionable methods scattered throughout his work. The 7-word phrase we'll explore today appears deceptively simple, so simple that most people dismiss it without ever experiencing its transformative power. Those who take the seemingly small step of implementing this evening ritual often report astonishing changes within days. Opportunities emerging from nowhere, creative solutions to persistent problems, and an inexplicable magnetic quality that draws success toward them. Before revealing these 7 words, I must offer an important warning. What you're about to learn cannot be approached casually. Napoleon Hill emphasized repeatedly that these techniques require absolute conviction and emotional intensity to reshape your subconscious patterns. Half-hearted applications yield half-hearted results. If you're merely curious rather than committed to transformation, you might want to stop watching now. But if you're ready to experience what happens when you align your conscious intentions with your subconscious power through a simple yet profound nightly ritual, prepare to discover the exact 7-word phrase that Napoleon Hill and countless successful individuals have used to program their minds for unprecedented achievement. The extraordinary power of the subconscious mind was a cornerstone of Napoleon Hill's philosophy long before modern science could explain the mechanisms behind it. Through extensive interviews with figures like Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, and Andrew Carnegie, Napoleon Hill documented a curious pattern. Virtually all truly successful people had developed some method of communicating directly with their subconscious faculties. They understood intuitively that the rational, analytical conscious mind, while incredibly useful, represented only a fraction of their mental capabilities. The subconscious, operating silently beneath our awareness, controls everything from our involuntary bodily functions to our deepest beliefs about ourselves and what's possible in our lives. It works continuously, 24 hours a day, processing approximately 400 billion bits of information per second, while our conscious mind handles only about 2,000 bits in the same time frame. This vast processing power lies largely untapped in most individuals, who never learn the methods for accessing and directing it toward their conscious goals. Napoleon Hill discovered that the pre-sleep state represents a unique opportunity, perhaps the most powerful daily opportunity, to bypass the critical, analytical conscious mind and speak directly to this hidden power center. As the brain transitions from beta waves of normal wakefulness to the alpha and theta waves that precede sleep, a window opens where suggestion can penetrate deeply into the subconscious without the filtering, doubting, and questioning that characterizes our normal waking state. It's during this transitional period that our minds become extraordinarily receptive to programming, whether positive or negative. Most people squander this time, either worrying about the day's problems, thus programming more problems, or passively drifting off without any intentional direction. The 7 words Napoleon Hill recommended speaking before sleep emerged from his understanding of how the subconscious responds to certain types of communication. He recognized that the subconscious doesn't process information the way our logical, analytical conscious mind does. It doesn't understand negation, for instance. Telling yourself, "I am not afraid," actually reinforces the concept of fear in your subconscious. It responds primarily to present tense, positive, emotionally charged statements that are accepted as already true. Furthermore, Napoleon Hill discovered that the subconscious responds especially powerfully to statements that combine clear direction with open-ended possibility, what he sometimes called definite purpose with indefinite method. The 7 words embody this principle perfectly, providing clear intention while allowing your subconscious the freedom to orchestrate the fulfillment of that intention through channels you might never consciously imagine. Most attempts at affirmations or self-suggestion fail because they violate these psychological principles. People make statements their subconscious immediately rejects as false, triggering internal resistance rather than cooperation. Napoleon Hill emphasized that successful communication with the subconscious requires not just specific language, but also emotionalized belief, the feeling that what you're stating is already true at some level. This is why Napoleon Hill taught that faith, not in the purely religious sense, but as absolute belief in something not yet manifested in physical reality, constitutes the chemical element that transforms ordinary thoughts into their physical equivalent. The 7-word phrase works so effectively because it's structured to minimize resistance while maximizing emotional engagement, making it exceptionally easy for your subconscious to accept and act upon. What makes these 7 words particularly powerful is their ability to initiate what Napoleon Hill called creative imagination, the faculty through which hunches, inspirations, and aha moments enter our awareness. By properly directing your last conscious thoughts before sleep, you essentially assign a problem or desire to your subconscious problem-solving machinery, which continues working while you sleep. Napoleon Hill documented countless instances where business challenges, scientific puzzles, and personal dilemmas were resolved through this method. Elias Howe conceived the breakthrough design for the sewing machine needle during sleep after focusing on the problem before bed. Auguste Kekulé discovered the ring structure of benzene through a dream of a snake biting its tail. These weren't random occurrences, but predictable results of properly engaging the subconscious mind at the critical pre-sleep juncture with a specific problem or desire. The exact 7-word phrase Napoleon Hill recommended contains a specific structure that aligns perfectly with how the subconscious processes information. Those words are, "I can achieve anything I can imagine." These 7 words might appear deceptively simple, but their arrangement leverages deep psychological principles. The phrase begins with I, immediately personalizing the statement and taking ownership of its power. Can establishes possibility without limitation, not will, which might trigger resistance about the future, and not want, which would only affirm the wanting, not the having. Achieve is an action verb that implies process and completion. Anything opens the statement to unlimited possibility, rather than limiting it to specific outcomes that might trigger disbelief. I can imagine creates a self-referential loop. Since you can only imagine what's already within your capacity to conceive, the statement becomes irrefutable to your subconscious, eliminating resistance while simultaneously expanding your sense of what's possible. When spoken in those crucial moments before sleep, these 7 words initiate a cascade of neurological processes. Your reticular activating system, the part of your brain that determines what information reaches your conscious awareness, begins filtering reality differently, bringing opportunities, ideas, and resources related to your desires into your field of attention that were always present but previously ignored. Napoleon Hill described this phenomenon long before neuroscience could explain it, noting how successful people seem to have an almost magical ability to attract the people, circumstances, and opportunities they needed. In reality, they had simply programmed their minds to recognize and act upon these elements that remained invisible to others whose attention filters were programmed differently. Napoleon Hill discovered that repetition is essential to this process. Not mindless repetition, but emotionally charged, belief-filled repetition that gradually reshapes your self-concept and expectations. The subconscious responds not just to the words themselves, but to the feeling tone that accompanies them. This is why merely reciting the 7 words without emotional conviction produces limited results. Napoleon Hill advised that you should speak these words aloud, with feeling, while visualizing yourself already in possession of the qualities and achievements you desire. The words serve as a verbal trigger that activates much deeper mental and emotional processes. When properly energized with emotion and belief, they create what Napoleon Hill called a burning desire, the starting point of all achievement and the power source that drives your subconscious machinery toward manifestation. The transformation begins subtly. Often so subtly most people miss the early signs and abandon the practice before the most dramatic results appear. You might notice unusual coincidences, unexpected ideas during the day, or solutions to problems appearing in your awareness upon waking. These early manifestations represent your subconscious beginning to reorganize your perceptions and behaviors to align with your new self-concept. Napoleon Hill stressed patience during this phase, understanding that just as physical muscles require consistent training before showing visible results, mental faculties require consistent programming before producing tangible outcomes. Those who persist through this initial period, typically 21 to 30 days, often experience a sudden breakthrough where external circumstances seem to rearrange themselves almost magically to support their desires. Napoleon Hill and his contemporary Neville Goddard both emphasized that these techniques work through natural law, not supernatural intervention. Your subconscious mind influences your decisions, perceptions, communications, and physical states in ways your conscious mind cannot fully comprehend. When properly directed, it orchestrates internal and external factors toward your desired outcome through entirely natural means that nevertheless appear magical to those who don't understand the process. The 7 words function as a master instruction that reprograms countless subsidiary beliefs and behaviors without requiring you to identify and address each one individually. Rather than fighting against specific limiting beliefs, an approach that often strengthens those very limitations through attention, this method implements a comprehensive new operating system for your mind that gradually overrides previous programming through the natural dominance of stronger, more persistent thoughts. Few people truly understand the profound relationship between sleep and success that Napoleon Hill uncovered in his research. The pre-sleep and post-waking states represent the most vulnerable and receptive periods for subconscious programming, yet most people pollute these critical transitions with worry, electronic stimulation, or mindless content consumption. Napoleon Hill observed that virtually all highly successful individuals developed some form of ritual for these transitional periods. Thomas Edison would pose specific questions to his subconscious before napping in his laboratory. Henry Ford maintained strict control over his last thoughts before sleep. Andrew Carnegie, Napoleon Hill's primary mentor, attributed much of his business acumen to insights received during early morning meditation following proper mental preparation the night before. These weren't superstitious practices, but practical applications of psychological principles these success pioneers had discovered through experience. The 7 words gain particular power when combined with Napoleon Hill's principle of definiteness of purpose. Without clear direction, even the most powerful subconscious mind can only produce random results. Napoleon Hill advised writing out a clear statement of your primary goal, what he called a definite major purpose, and reviewing it immediately before repeating the 7-word phrase. This primes your subconscious with specific content to work with during sleep. Your definite purpose provides the what, while the 7 words create the conviction that achievement is possible, regardless of current circumstances or past failures. Together, they create what Napoleon Hill called the magic combination that virtually guarantees success. Knowing exactly what you want coupled with unshakable belief in your ability to attain it. Sleep researchers have now confirmed what Napoleon Hill intuited decades earlier. During sleep, particularly during REM phases, your brain processes information differently than during waking hours. It forms new neural connections, consolidates memories, and integrates experiences in ways impossible during normal consciousness. Studies at Harvard Medical School demonstrate that people working on problems before sleep often wake with solutions that eluded them while awake. By introducing the 7-word phrase immediately before this powerful processing period, you're essentially programming the parameters for this integration work. Napoleon Hill understood that the subconscious continues working on your last dominant thoughts even as you sleep, which is why controlling those final thoughts is so crucial to determining what your mind produces by morning. Most people dramatically underestimate how quickly their reality can transform once their subconscious fully aligns with their conscious desires. Napoleon Hill documented numerous cases of seemingly miraculous transformations that occurred once this alignment was achieved. People who had struggled for years suddenly found paths opening before them effortlessly. The explanation isn't mystical but psychological. When your subconscious fully accepts an idea as true, it begins directing your perceptions, decisions, communications, physical energy, and countless other factors toward making that truth manifest. You begin noticing opportunities you previously overlooked. Your communication becomes more compelling. Your energy aligns with your goals. Even your physical posture and expressions change in subtle ways that influence how others respond to you. All these changes happen automatically once the 7 words have been properly installed in your subconscious through consistent pre-sleep repetition. Understanding the neurological mechanisms behind this process only enhances its effectiveness. Napoleon Hill didn't have access to modern brain scanning technology, but his observations align perfectly with current research on neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. Each time you repeat the 7 words with emotional conviction before sleep, you strengthen specific neural pathways while weakening competing patterns. Professor Andrew Huberman of Stanford University has demonstrated that the transitional period between wakefulness and sleep represents a unique opportunity for accelerated neuroplasticity, the exact window Napoleon Hill identified for his 7-word practice. This isn't coincidence but validation of Napoleon Hill's genius in recognizing patterns that science would only confirm decades later through advanced technology and controlled studies. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of this technique is its universality. Napoleon Hill observed its effectiveness across all demographics, industries, and personality types. The banker and the artist, the extrovert and the introvert, the academically educated and the self-taught, all experienced similar transformations when applying this method consistently. What varied was not the effectiveness of the technique, but the specific manifestations it produced, which always aligned with the individual's definite purpose and natural inclinations. Napoleon Hill noted that the subconscious seems to find the path of least resistance toward any clearly defined goal, drawing upon your unique talents, connections, and opportunities rather than forcing you into someone else's formula for success. This explains why two people can apply the same technique with equal diligence yet manifest entirely different external results. Each person's subconscious crafts a custom solution optimized for their specific situation. The skeptic might wonder about potential confirmation bias, seeing what you expect to see after implementing such a technique. Napoleon Hill addressed this directly, noting that even if some benefits came through heightened awareness rather than external change, the results remained valuable regardless of mechanism. However, he documented too many cases of verifiable external changes to dismiss the technique as merely psychological. Job offers appearing after months of rejection. Business opportunities emerging from unexpected sources. Creative solutions to technical problems that transformed entire industries. Napoleon Hill's 25-year study catalogued thousands of such cases where the external circumstances changed too dramatically to attribute the results to mere perception shifts, though perception shifts certainly formed part of the overall transformation process. What happens when you combine the 7 words with Napoleon Hill's other principles like the mastermind concept, the coordination of knowledge and effort between 2 or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose? Napoleon Hill observed multiplicative effects. When partners or teams aligned their subconscious programming through similar pre-sleep rituals, they often manifested collaborative opportunities beyond what any individual could have achieved alone. Business partners who separately practiced the 7-word technique found their individual inspirations complementing each other perfectly the following day. Creative collaborators reported unprecedented synchronicity in their work. Napoleon Hill theorized that properly aligned subconscious minds might communicate through channels beyond our conscious understanding, creating a collective intelligence greater than the sum of its parts. One particularly fascinating aspect Napoleon Hill documented was how the 7-word technique gradually transformed not just external circumstances, but internal states as well. Individuals who had struggled with chronic anxiety, pessimism, or procrastination found these tendencies diminishing without direct effort as their subconscious reorganized around the new self-concept implied in the 7 words. Napoleon Hill explained this as the natural consequence of mental law. The dominant thought always displaces lesser thoughts over time. By installing "I can achieve anything I can imagine" as the dominant thought each night, practitioners created a new center of gravity for their mental and emotional lives. Old habits of thought that contradicted this new center gradually weakened through disuse, while new, supportive thought patterns strengthened through the subconscious's natural tendency toward consistency. Perhaps most importantly, Napoleon Hill observed that this technique created a self-reinforcing cycle of success. Each small win strengthened belief in the 7 words, making them more convincing to the subconscious, which then produced larger manifestations, further strengthening belief. This positive feedback loop explained why many practitioners reported accelerating results over time rather than diminishing returns. The first 21 days typically produced subtle shifts, the next 21 days brought more tangible changes, and beyond 60 days, many experienced breakthrough events that permanently altered their life trajectory. Napoleon Hill called this the success spiral, and noted that once this momentum was established, many found they could maintain it with less conscious effort than was initially required, as their subconscious had been effectively reprogrammed to seek and create success automatically. The proper application of the 7 words requires understanding several nuances Napoleon Hill emphasized repeatedly. First, they must be spoken aloud, not merely thought silently. The act of vocalization creates multisensory input. You hear your own voice affirming the statement, which strengthens the impression on your subconscious. Second, they should be spoken with feeling, not mechanical repetition. Napoleon Hill stressed that emotionalized thoughts are hundreds of times more powerful than unemotional ones in influencing the subconscious. Third, they should be the absolute last conscious activity before sleep, not followed by checking your phone, watching television, or conversing with others, all of which would override the programming with new input. Fourth, they should be combined with vivid visualization of already having what you desire, engaging as many senses as possible in this mental rehearsal. Napoleon Hill cautioned against several common mistakes that undermine the effectiveness of this technique. Many people unwittingly sabotage themselves by following the positive 7-word statement with contrary thoughts like, "I hope this works," or, "But what if I fail again?" These contradictory thoughts create confusion in the subconscious rather than clear direction. Others practice inconsistently, expecting permanent results from temporary effort. Napoleon Hill emphasized that reprogramming the subconscious requires the same consistency as physical exercise. Sporadic effort produces sporadic results. Some practice the 7 words correctly, but spend their daytime hours immersed in negative conversation, media, and environments that contradict their evening programming. Napoleon Hill advised creating as much alignment as possible between your pre-sleep ritual and your daily activities, gradually eliminating influences that reinforce old, limiting patterns. While the core 7-word phrase remains constant, Napoleon Hill recommended customizing the visualization that accompanies it. For someone focused on business growth, the visualization might include seeing specific revenue numbers, signing particular clients, or launching successful products. For health transformation, the visualization might involve experiencing vibrant energy, enjoying physical activities that were previously challenging, or receiving compliments on visible changes. For relationship goals, one might visualize harmonious interactions, resolving conflicts constructively, or enjoying quality time together. The 7 words provide the structural foundation, while your visualization supplies the specific content your subconscious should manifest. Napoleon Hill noted that the more detailed and sensorially rich these visualizations, the more quickly the subconscious could reproduce them in physical reality. Success leaves clues, as Napoleon Hill often observed. Throughout history, variations of this same technique appear in the biographies and teachings of remarkable achievers across diverse fields. Walt Disney would reportedly visualize his theme park in complete sensory detail before sleeping each night, long before construction began. Olympic athletes like Michael Phelps and visualization pioneer Jack Nicklaus used pre-sleep programming to rehearse perfect performance. Inventor Nikola Tesla claimed to develop his revolutionary devices completely in his mind during meditative states similar to the pre-sleep condition. Napoleon Hill simply systematized what these intuitive achievers had discovered individually and distilled it into a practical methodology anyone could apply. The 7 words represent the crystallization of this wisdom, a master key that unlocks the same mental faculties these exceptional individuals use to transform their fields. What happens when you continue this practice not just for weeks or months, but for years? Napoleon Hill's longitudinal studies revealed fascinating patterns. Many reported that the conscious repetition eventually became unnecessary as the principle embedded itself so deeply in their subconscious that it operated automatically. Others discovered emerging psychic and intuitive abilities, heightened awareness, prescient dreams, and inexplicable knowing that transcended logical analysis. Some described accessing what Napoleon Hill called infinite intelligence, a universal mind or collective consciousness beyond individual awareness. While Napoleon Hill documented these experiences, he remained practical rather than mystical in his approach, focusing on verifiable results rather than unprovable metaphysics. He maintained that whether these experiences represented actual connection to forces beyond the individual or simply heightened function of untapped mental faculties, the practical benefits remained the same: dramatically improved life outcomes across all dimensions. As we conclude this exploration of Napoleon Hill's transformative 7-word phrase, let us reflect on what truly distinguishes those who achieve extraordinary success from those who merely dream about it. The difference rarely lies in circumstances, connections, or even natural talent. It lies in understanding and applying the psychological principles we've discussed today. The pre-sleep ritual of affirming, "I can achieve anything I can imagine," represents far more than a self-help technique. It embodies a profound truth about human potential that Napoleon Hill dedicated his life to documenting and teaching. When properly understood and consistently applied, these 7 words become the gateway between your present reality and the life you've previously only imagined, bridging the gap not through magical thinking but through systematic reprogramming of your most powerful mental faculties. Throughout his extensive research, spanning 25 years and involving direct contact with over 500 of the most successful individuals of his era, Napoleon Hill discovered that achievement is governed by laws as consistent as physics or mathematics. Chief among these is the law that whatever is planted in the subconscious mind and nourished through repetition and emotion must eventually manifest in physical reality. Your life today, in all its aspects, represents the harvest of seeds previously planted in your subconscious, consciously or unconsciously. The 7-word evening ritual gives you conscious control over this planting process, allowing you to cultivate precisely the conditions, opportunities, and achievements you desire, rather than leaving your mental garden to the random seeds blown in by circumstance, media, or others' expectations. Consider beginning tonight, this very evening, with this simple but profound practice. As you lie in bed, having turned off all electronic devices and external stimuli, speak aloud with conviction, "I can achieve anything I can imagine." Feel the truth of these words resonating through your being. Visualize your deepest desires as already accomplished, experiencing the emotions, sensations, and satisfaction of that achievement. Then allow yourself to drift into sleep with these impressions still active in your consciousness. Do this with unwavering consistency for 30 days before evaluating the results. Napoleon Hill observed that while some experience immediate effects, the most profound transformations typically begin emerging after 3 to 4 weeks of consistent practice, precisely when most people unfortunately abandon their efforts just before breakthrough. What makes these 7 words so uniquely powerful is how they address the root of all achievement: self-concept. Napoleon Hill recognized that people rarely rise above their self-imposed limitations or fall below their deeply held convictions about what's possible for them. By reprogramming this fundamental self-concept during the critical pre-sleep period when your subconscious is most receptive, you're not merely adopting a positive thought. You're systematically dismantling the invisible barriers that have been containing your potential. As these barriers dissolve, you'll likely experience what many of Napoleon Hill's students described: a sense of expanding possibility, emerging opportunities that perfectly align with your goals, and an inexplicable confidence that transcends logic yet produces tangible results. Remember that what I've shared today isn't speculation, philosophy, or motivational rhetoric. It's a practical psychological technique documented through thousands of case studies across decades of research. Napoleon Hill devoted his life to understanding the science of achievement, distilling complex principles into actionable methods anyone can apply. These 7 words represent the essence of his discoveries: that the barrier between your current circumstances and your desired reality is thinner than you realize, and that the key to crossing that barrier lies not in external resources, but in the systematic alignment of your conscious desires with your subconscious power. If you apply nothing else from today's discussion, commit to this one practice. Speak these 7 words before sleep each night with absolute conviction, and watch as your life begins transforming in ways you might currently consider impossible. For in the timeless wisdom of Napoleon Hill, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. If this exploration of Napoleon Hill's wisdom has resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more insights into the principles of achievement and success. Share your experiences with this technique in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to begin their own transformation journey. Remember that by applying these principles consistently, you're not just changing your own life, but potentially inspiring countless others through your example. Until next time, I leave you with these 7 words to plant in your subconscious tonight. I can achieve anything I can imagine.